Okay, so my basic thought about all of this is if something seems religious, it is religious. If it seems religious to someone, then no amount of explaining, no rationalizing, no reasoning is going to help someone else to have an experience that doesn't seem like it is a religious experience, or like what they're experiencing doesn't have trappings of religion. And I think that this is a tremendous problem in our time, because we can see the walls that really that our schools have created, the walls that prevent families from joining with our school communities, because they feel that the um, mood or the it just seems religious to them in a way that doesn't reflect the religion that they practice, or they have perhaps rejected a religion that they grew up in. And I think it would be hard to dispute that uh, in North America, at least, and definitely in other places, Europe as well, there is a perception that Waldorf schools are Christian schools. They seem like Christian schools. And I think that that's the heart of the problem. So for me, it's really important that we create schools that are inclusive, that are welcoming to people of any religious background, let alone any other types of background. That a Waldorf school, to me, is a place where everybody can find what they need. So as a North American, as a member of the Waldorf school movement, as a member of the anthroposophical movement, I think it's incumbent on me. I feel it like a responsibility that I want to transform this image that Waldorf schools have, that they seem like Christian schools in many places, in many parts of our world. So what that means is that our Waldorf schools have to become beacons of, yes, a spiritual education, but a universal spiritual education. So the question is, how do we do that? That is the big question. How do we create universal havens where families feel welcome and connected? And I think it's through our shared values and our common celebration of new festivals, festivals that we are going to have to create ourselves, and that we will create with the community that we are part of, the school community. And of course, the children are at the center of this community, but the families that come to us are part of this community, and we have to honor the backgrounds of those families. And I feel that this is what the spirit of our time is asking us to do. So I wish all schools would take the time and effort to create unique festivals that could be appreciated universally, that speak to the place of the human being within the earth and cosmos, that speak to the seasons, that speak to the peoples of the earth, and that speak to the various kingdoms of life, and that don't come from any religious tradition. So then we have this question: how do we create a festival without seeming religious, but a festival imbued with meaning, with symbolism, with deep uh, intention and purpose? Now, don't get me wrong. I am not promoting a like a dead version of Waldorf education with no festival life. That would not satisfy me, nor do I think it would serve the intentions of the Waldorf school movement. And I feel that we have to acknowledge the spiritual realities, but we have to do it in a way that, like I keep saying, in a way that does not smack of a particular religion. But I also think that a hodgepodge of festivals from a variety of religions, I think that would be something that would be perhaps undigestible for the children, not to mention it being an unnecessary burden for the faculty at a school where you might choose to celebrate Diwali and Hanukkah and Christmas season and Ramadan and so many festivals, you could definitely get overwhelmed as a teacher. And you could only imagine what it would be like for the children to have those experiences and to have to take all that in. So I think the key is getting to the core of what the time of year is asking for us to do, and then create something that doesn't have walls, that doesn't have barriers to people participating. So yes, vibrant, enlivened, spiritual, and spirited festival celebrations created out of the community in a school, out of the thinking and willing of the unique faculty and school community wherever you are. And then it can speak to everyone. So how do we do this? We're going to have to write our own stories. We're going to have to develop our own festival pictures that have intention standing behind them, but the manifest images, the manifestation of this intention is something that could be universal. It's hard work. It's definitely hard work. I'm suggesting we do more, that we do more because we can create something new. But when we do something like that, something amazing happens. And not only is there the magic that you wish for, that the parents come to the school looking for, they've heard about this magic, but also the festival, you can feel it in the celebration of it, this this synthesis of you and the community, and you really can begin to feel this joining of cosmic and earthly forces when you're part of the creating of such a festival. So I would like to focus particularly on this time of year, and I don't want to keep everyone very long. You know, I'm hoping an hour-ish and we can be off to, I don't know about you all, perhaps some of you have leftovers to eat this evening. In my family, we did not do a big feast yesterday. We had a medical procedure this morning that required not eating too much and not being very active the day before. So we're having Chinese food that I already made for dinner tonight. So I just like to look quickly at the autumn going into the winter time, because that's where we are. We're at the tail end of autumn heading into winter. So in the autumn, what is happening in the autumn? It's starting to be like a going to sleep of the earth. And I should say, I'm speaking of the Northern Hemisphere. If we lived in the Southern Hemisphere, we would have to think differently. But I at least, I'm not sure where all of you live, but I live in the Northern Hemisphere. And in the Northern Hemisphere, in the autumn, the earth is beginning to go to sleep. The elemental beings are turning towards the earth. As they approach the earth, they become more and more connected to the earth, so that in winter, these elemental forces or elemental activity is breathed into the earth. And in the winter time, it's like these elemental processes, the elemental spirits are united with the earth, and they withdraw into the interior of the earth, and they live there among the plant roots, among the seeds that are preparing for the new growth that will be coming in the spring. So in the depths of winter, the earth, in relation to the cosmos, is sort of creating a self-containment. In summer, the earth is wide open and gives itself over to the cosmos, but in the winter, the earth is going inward. Now, if we think about how to create a festival, how to celebrate the changing seasons, we have some help. One help that, at least for me, that's really helpful is a lecture that Steiner gave in April 1923. It's part of the cycle that he called the cycle of the year as a breathing process of the earth. And particularly in lecture 5, he really gives or gave this map of how in the course of the year, the human beings can achieve balance in the sort of the inwardizing or the excarnating tendencies that are present at certain times of year. So as we go into the fall or winter months, we have to, what Steiner told us is that we have to begin to enter into the processes of dying, the processes of fading. And we have to be able to enter sensitively into this, not just in our head, but in a way that we can feel it, we can sense it. You know, another part of this process of the year is that we're going towards what Steiner called the salt time of year, or the crystallizing time of year, or the ash time of year, depending on which lecture or which moment you read what Steiner had been saying. But there's this like a distillation of the forces of the earth. And it's that the whole earth is kind of having a moon experience, you could say. Steiner did say. The earth is having this moon experience as a preparation for receiving the new sun, the sun that will return, the sun that starting on the day of the solstice starts to come back, making the days seem longer and longer. Now, in this lecture, Steiner gave us little phrases to think about. And he said that if we knew how to listen carefully, we would hear the spiritual beings, the helpful spiritual beings, giving us guidance. And at the autumn time of year, these spiritual beings are saying to us to look around yourself. So the tendency is to begin to go inward, inward, inward at this time of year. But the helpful spiritual beings want us to remember to look around us. And part of that is that we need to become cognizant of nature and of the spiritual activity that it lies within nature. That's part of this looking around ourselves, to really keep our thinking connecting to the nature that's around us instead of becoming too inward. And as we enter fully into winter time, the admonition from the spiritual beings that want to help us is that we have to be aware of the darkness, or beware of the inner darkness, the darkness in our soul. And we all know, I'm sure every one of us knows someone that at this time of year experiences what they call SAD, seasonal affective disorder. And it's merely because there's less light at this time of year, but there's a physiological effect that causes psychological distress in some people. So we have to, at this time of year, find a way to balance that tendency. We don't all have that physiological response, but we all have the tendency to go inward and to kind of get lost in ourselves. The regrets that we have, the unfulfilled wishes, the unmet needs, they all sort of fester or simmer in our inner life, and we can get lost there. But the spiritual beings that want to help humanity evolve are suggesting to us to actively take in the light, meaning the encoded cosmic wisdom that is streaming to us all the time from the stars and planets, the cosmic moral forces that are coming towards us. The light of the stars and planets is really information, is really the spiritual wisdom, if we can know how to hear it, if we can know how to listen to it. And then we also can take in this light as something that can inform our deeds. And in a way, this is the overall theme of life as a human being. Steve's version is we can learn how to receive this cosmic wisdom, the light, the literal light, but it's also a carrier of cosmic spiritual information. So we can learn how to receive this light and take it inside, receive it in our heart, and turn it back out into the world as deeds done out of an intention of love. In a way, I think that's the essence of the developing human being, to do that. So at this time of year in the winter, when we have this tendency to get lost in our inner turmoil, our inner struggles, the admonition is to be aware of the inner darkness that lives in each of us and to actively connect to the wisdom that's streaming towards us at all time. And for me, that is enough information to figure out how to create a festival. I'm not going to go into the rest of the year. It's a great lecture. I suggest that everybody read it and read it a few times. And in it, of course, spring and summer are addressed, but that's for another time, another season. So how do we take that guidance and do something with it? And how do we take that guidance and do something with it in relation to this idea, at least what I think is an important idea, of doing something that is universal, that speaks to everyone, that's not creating walls? So there's various aspects of our life in our early childhood programs to consider. The first thing is, what does our classroom look like? What's on the walls? What do you have up? So perhaps some of you aren't even indoors this year. I bet that's the case for a number of you. When you're able to be back indoors, then you can look with new eyes at what's on the walls. And, when I first became a teacher, or I was on my way to becoming a teacher, I went to a workshop, and one of the breakout groups at the workshop was a woman offering various ideas about kindergarten life, and it was in her kindergarten room. And somebody pointed out a painting on the wall of her room, and possibly you've seen the painting, possibly it's in your kindergarten, I don't know. But the painting is named the Sistine Madonna. And somebody said, "Why do you have that painting in your room?" And this woman thought for a moment, and she said, "Well, it's because it's in all the Waldorf kindergartens." And not only was that deeply unsatisfying for me, it seemed very dismissive of the person who was asking the question, really. Because I felt the person asking the question was really asking, is this a Christian school? And I talked to the woman afterwards, and that was her concern, not the teacher, the person asking the question. And so that's something for everyone to consider. Is that something you want to have in your kindergarten? I no longer have it, even though I have a very deep relationship with that image. I've never seen the painting itself in person, but the prints of it and the photos or whatever. And it's a really powerful, amazing, incredible, esoteric, deep picture. And I'm not going to go into all of that. It's there, though. It has meaning and depth and artistry, and it's just amazing. And it seems like a Christian picture. And we have to find a balance with that. There's amazing picture. There's other images of mothers and children, or fathers and children for that matter, that could be on the wall of your kindergarten or early childhood program room. And something to think about is that, does that say something to people who don't have the same understanding of that image as you do? So that's something to think about. When I first became a teacher, someone said, "Here are the puppets for you to use during Advent time." I'm like, "Oh, what do I do with these?" And they said, "Well, you start with just the mother and father puppet, and you put them over, on the corner of the room, and every day you move them around the room closer and closer until the last day of kindergarten before the Christmas break. Then they're on the nature table with their baby. Suddenly the baby appears." I'm like, "Oh, really? I'm not doing that." So but it lives strongly in the school that I came to, this tradition of really bringing the Christmas story into the kindergarten. In those days, we didn't have younger than kindergarten. We only had kindergarten. So something to think about. How do we want to have things to, on display? Because we can think, well, it's just us and the children, but it isn't just us and the children, because the children have families and their parents are intellectual, just like we are. And while the children might not bring something into their consciousness, their parents take things into their consciousness differently than the children do. So something that the children never comment about could be something that's very troubling for a parent. And in my experience, this is something I've been doing since the late 80s, being a kindergarten teacher. And I've had many parents in the early days in my kindergarten help me understand what the images that I was offering, you could say, by putting them on the wall, how those affected the parents. And if they affect the parents, even if it's not talked about, then it does affect the children. But also, I had over the many years parents from other people's kindergartens, teachers from other people's kindergartens, wondering about this imagery that seems so prevalent, or has seemed so prevalent. Same with the stories that people tell at this time of year, the circle times that people do at this time of year. I told you that when I started, I was handed the Jesus and Mary and Joseph puppets to use, the little table puppets to move around the room to head for the nature table eventually. But I also was handed the circle time that was exactly that story. And my first year, I did do that. A new teacher, you have enough on your plate as it is, but it didn't feel right to me. And that year particularly, I had a lot of very vocal parents. And as a new teacher, somehow I was able to be open-minded to really hear their needs and their concerns and the things that felt like a barrier for them. Families of Indian descent, families who were Muslim, it just didn't resonate for them. Jewish families. So it's something I've been thinking about for a long time. And in a few minutes, I'd like to offer you a circle time, a replacement for that Joseph and Mary walking around looking for a place to have their baby story. What do you think it could feel like for a Jewish family, a Muslim family, or a Hindu family if they come to the little festival that you create for the kindergarten at the end of the winter, or at the end, right before the winter break, and you have them dress up as the as a couple who are looking for a place to stay to have a baby. You don't have to name them, but everyone knows who that couple is representing. And I don't think it feels good for families that really love the pedagogical ideals of Waldorf education, but are troubled by the imagery that doesn't fit in their family tradition. Now, I've been to many, many schools around the world, and many really amazing, enlivened, alive Waldorf schools in other places where the Christmas story has nothing to do with the culture where the school is located, and they don't do those stories. And it's you don't feel that there's something missing, because they've created festivals that fit for their community. And they've created new festivals too. They've created something out of the fabric of their community, but also trying not to be of a particular religion because they didn't have the tradition of the sort of Christian Waldorf school celebration to have to adapt. It just didn't live for them at all. So what about the families who on the night of December 6th, the child comes home and said, "Oh, how come we didn't get any stuff at home at school? We got some stuff in our shoes." You know, why would we think that it's a good idea to spring a celebration onto a family that involves giving stuff? You know, these are important questions, I think, that we really need to ask. You know, even in Holland, where this celebration lived strongly, that it's being deeply questioned. And in fact, this past year, there was protests in the streets, especially about the helper for St. Nicholas. The helper for St. Nicholas named Rupert or Ruprecht or Black Peter. I mean, it's 100% racist imagery, I'm sorry to say. Not to mention, there's the question that we also could ask for our early childhood programs: are saints something that we want to be celebrating? Because if you think about what is a saint is a human being who had a lot of shortcomings, a lot of weaknesses. To put it in, you know, shorthand, that this person was a jerk and had to overcome that part of themselves. They had to redeem themselves by whatever it was, giving away their riches or becoming a nice person and doing good deeds for others. But is that the image we want to give to the little children anyway? We don't want them to have that experience of the jerks. We want them to feel the world is good. The world is a good place. And additionally, I think that in early childhood, it isn't saints that we would want to be celebrating. It's really the creator beings, the high divinity that created the world, that is constantly creating the world, and the elemental forces that are, you know, you could say they're the minions of the creator beings. Those are the main non-physical beings that I think would be celebrated in early childhood. Now, I should keep saying these are just my ideas. They don't have to be your ideas. In fact, I should also have started by confessing I have a problem, and my problem is I sometimes talk like what I'm saying is the only way to think about stuff. So I don't mean for you to go away and have my thoughts, but I would be happy if you went away and thought about my thoughts. And then you can decide for yourself if they're your thoughts or not. I think that really the key is our open-mindedness in all of this, because we've been handed down tradition, and especially in North America, we've been handed a tradition since 1929 of doing things a certain way. And the times have changed, and the traditions don't really fully serve the needs of the diverse humanity that lives everywhere. So I think we have to be active in our thinking, which means we have to use our will. Being active in our thinking is a will activity. And that's how we're going to develop our Waldorf education into a true healing social impulse, which is what our time needs, clearly. And I think without doing that, without recognizing the barriers that Waldorf tradition has erected that prevent the vast diversity of humanity from feeling welcome at Waldorf schools, if we can't change that, the Waldorf school movement isn't going to survive for very long. So one of the big things at this time of year that happens in many Waldorf schools is a bunch of teachers get together and perform the shepherd's play, this ancient tradition of a kind of comical, kind of reverent combination, rendition of the shepherd's experience of the coming birth of Jesus. And it's beautiful, it's lovely. And again, this is my thinking, it has no place in a Waldorf school. If you do it in school and it's something that all the children are attending within the school day, then that says something. That says something that your school is standing for this as part of sort of the school embraces this as something that represents the school. And I mean, I think it would be lovely if a bunch of teachers or other community members wanted to perform the shepherd's play and did it in an evening, not at school, and then advertised it, and anyone who wanted to go could go. But when we make it part of the day of school, to me, that's a problem. Yeah. So when I think about a festival, part of it is there's this anticipation, there's expectation, especially if the festival happens every year. Then the children, who are in the younger ones, who you have a second or third or fourth year with you, they have a sort of a fuzzy memory of it, but they know something is coming. And for the little ones, having something that comes at a certain time once a year, actually for us also, it's a really important thing. And it's something that can be a helpful thing actually for our physical bodies, that we have these things that come around once a year. It's something that nurtures our physical body to have these repeating one time a year experiences. And when we have this anticipation of this something that's coming, to me, it makes me think of the Beethoven symphony that hints at this theme. It keeps hinting, and the hinting gets stronger and stronger until finally the chorus comes out and they sing this epic ode to joy. Like finally the festival arrives. But the part before the singing is what the time before the festival, I think that's what it could and maybe should feel like, that something is coming. We're on our way to this, and we're getting hints of it, and we're having little pieces that are helping to deepen our relationship to this coming festival, which in itself is helping deepen our relationship to the world around us and the changing seasons and the stars and planets and our planet Earth. And so this is where the art of it all comes in. So before I leap into the last piece of a specific, which is the event formerly known as the Advent Garden, because I don't think we should throw the baby out with the bathwater. I think that is a very important piece of our annual school life. But, and I'll explain the but in a minute. I'm sure many of us, I'm sure everyone, in fact, who's connected to Waldorf schools as a teacher and who has read various things of Steiner has heard about this thing where the Waldorf schools are connected or overshadowed or led by the Christ impulse, whatever that is. And I'm not saying that's not true. I totally feel that. I connect with that. And I think the word or the definition of what Steiner meant is really something that needs our investigation, our research, our trying to deepen our understanding of what that means. Steiner talked about this a lot, a lot. And he talked about it, the event, the celebrated event, this, the Christmas event, as something occurring at the turning point of time, because the earth, according to Steiner's research, the earth was in a state of decay. And so the being of the sun, that big golden shiny thing in our sky, has a spiritual being that is part of it or within it. And that being decided it needed to unite itself with the earth so that the earth could flourish again. And Steiner said that that he wished, I wrote this, or I brought a quote, but now I have to find it. Oh, Steiner said really that it didn't matter what we call that being. In fact, he said, in the future, it won't matter much whether what Christ is will be called by that name or not. But what he said was important is that that being is recognized as the spiritual uniter of humanity. And he said that we can tell if we connect with that impulse, with that positive, evolutionary, forward-moving impulse, if what we're doing is bringing people together, is uniting people. The converse is also true. If what we're doing is not uniting people, is causing people to not connect with what we're doing, then to me, it's a clear, it's like logic. Then clearly we're not connecting with that impulse of unity and harmony and connection. So I think about that a lot. What can we do that is uniting people? Because that is how we connect with this being of the sun that is trying to nourish the humanity's evolution forward. So for me, it's a big worry for me. I'm really worried about the future of Waldorf education. The idea is that it's a beacon of welcome and hope and inspiration for the future. But it can only be that if it doesn't have walls that prevent people from joining this beautiful, amazing school movement. So, as I said, I think it would be a good idea to abandon St. Nicholas completely, to celebrate the shepherd's play not during the school day, to look at what's on the walls of your kindergarten or early childhood room and consider it from eyes other than your own. Try to practice this open-mindedness and even look at these things that maybe some people think of as sacred cows. Look at it really in consideration of, is this something I want, or is this something that I no longer need to have here? Openness to the perspective of the other is so important for our schools, but also it's an important part of each one of us in our own spiritual development. So now I'd like to share something with you. I just shared a link to a PDF, but I'm going to walk you through this PDF because this is a circle time that I love to do. And I don't know if any of you know me from before, but I'm not a big fan of describing what gnomes and fairies and invisible beings are. It's not something that I can see. I feel that that is something that's real, but honestly, I don't think that gnomes look like little guys with big feet and pointy heads or pointy hats. But I prefer to do something with the gnomes, and you'll see as we go through this why I do this in light of everything I've just been saying. So I'm just going to do this circle time, but I'm going to be doing it sitting in the chair. I'm sorry. That's just where I am, and not going to move my laptop around while I'm so this is the circle time that I've been doing in this time of year between Thanksgiving and the winter break for many, many years. And most of it came from Janet Kelman. I don't know if you know who she is. She used to be the director of the early childhood teacher training at Rudolph Steiner College in Fair Oaks, California, when that used to be a teacher training place. And I will say one thing. I mean, circle time, ring time is a passion of mine. And so we're going to be pretending that we're gnomes. Now, if we're going to do hammering, you can't hammer like this. Nobody does that. I don't want the children to learn how to hammer switching hands every stroke. That's a very silly way to hammer. So we have to use one hand for the hammering. Just saying. So here we go. My throat, not so good. My cup is empty for drinking, so bear with me. Listen, listen. It's the song of the stars. Listen, singing light, streaming, sparkling, and glistening. Listen, listen. The singing light shines upon the earth, and in the depths of the earth, crystals are birthed. So I would be laying down on the floor now, like this, listening down on the floor with one hand cupped on one ear. But I'm in my chair, as I mentioned. Who is this I hear deep down in the earth, hacking and cracking the rocks and the stones, hacking and cracking the rocks and the stones? We are little gnomes working in our homes. Hammer, 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 tap, tap, tap. And then I would get up and we do it instead of with our hands, we do it with our feet. So of course the children aren't going to be as rhythmic as I am, but I'm going to be rhythmic, and we are little gnomes. So my feet would be going like this. We are little gnomes working in our homes. But then I always shift to tiptoes for this part. Hammer, 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 tap, 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 and just see what happens. That's how I do it. See what the children do. By the last day before break, at least one of them will do it like you. Trip, trap, go we gnomes along our track. Trip, trap, out from caverns. So here's my cavern. Out from caverns, deep in the ground, out from roots that twist all around, out from crystals that shine near and far, we gather the light. So I reach up into the sky and gather the light from the sun, moon, and stars. Twinkling, shining, sparkling clear, the light-filled heavens are so near, gathering sacks of their heavenly light for our starry homes neath the earth tonight. So I just grabbed some light and pulled it in. Trip, trap. So now we're just walking round and round. Trip, trap, go we gnomes along our path. Trip, trap, with our sacks upon our backs. trip, trap, trip, trap. Filling sacks with sunlight. It depends how long you want to be doing this for. I actually start out and repeat everything a couple times, but I'm just giving you all the fast version, and it'll be recorded in case you wanted to listen to it, if you dare to listen to me doing it again. But eventually, instead of just filling sacks with sunlight, filling sacks with moonlight, filling sacks with starlight, I filled sacks with sunlight and then trip, trap some more. And then fill the sack with moonlight, and then fill the sack with starlight too. And I could say now I start to sneak in a little bit of eurythmy here and there. So I fill the sacks with sunlight, but I'm making it like a round sun. But when we do the moonlight, I put my arms really tight together, like a ooh. And at the top, though, I'm making a small moon with like a fingertip ball moon. And then starlight, starlight. And I always wiggle my fingers for stars. Now back into our mountain homes with our sacks of heavenly light. Yes, we are the little gnomes working the earth with all our might. This is my light on my cap, in case you're wondering. Our light-filled caps show us the way. Now I have to show you again. Down in the roots, down in the shoots, down where the crystals stay. Then, so I was standing up for that, and then I sit down, and then we're doing L's, for, because there's a lot of in this next section. Down in the silver, down in the gold, down in the metals, young and old. Off we take our light-filled sacks. Now it's time to hammer and hack, hammer and hack, hammer and hack. Now, I live in California, and when I first heard this, I thought this was the greatest thing ever. Crack, crack, the rocks we hack. Quake, quake, the mountains shake. We have earthquakes here, and the children know what earthquakes are, and they shake the earth, and it just seems so perfect to me. So crack, crack, the rocks we hack. Quake, quake, the mountains shake. Bang, bang, our hammers bang. In caverns old, we seek the gold. So now imagine that your one fist is a stone, a crystal, and your other hand is what you're going to polish the crystal with. Polishing, polishing, shine the stones. Twinkling light fills our starry homes. Polishing, polishing, shine the stones. Twinkling light fills our starry homes. I like to polish faces or your belly. And if you happen to have a rug in your room, and if the rug is some sort of polyester, the coolest thing can happen if you really use effort, exertion, and rub your hands on the rug, polishing, polishing, shine the stones, and do it for a little while before you lift your hands up. When you lift your hands up, your hands will have this weird tingly feeling. And I want that to happen to the children, actually. It's so cool. So I rub my hands a long time on the rug, and then lift them up. Twinkling lights fills our starry homes. But no, the gnomes' work is never done. Gnomes work by stars, by moon, and by sun. So it's the same, but backwards order. Stars, moon, and the sun. And the stones spread their heavenly light on the sleeping seeds in the earth tonight. And now we're all the way on the ground, curled up in a little ball. The seeds are sleeping beneath the earth till springtime comes and brings new birth. And I let them rest for like a few seconds at least. I like to use silence as part of circle time sometimes. No, the gnome's work is never done. The gnomes work by stars, by moon and sun, and our stones spread their heavenly light on the sleeping seeds in the earth tonight. Now we open wide our hearts and sacks. We even open wide our caps. I can't tell if you all are looking at the PDF that I have here or the one on the web page, but I'm gonna guess that some of you know this song, and it's part of a Christmas type of song, and I only use this one verse because it fits perfectly for me. From heaven's arch so high, a little light draws nigh, stops to hear, stands quite near, wonders what is happening here. The heavenly light shines through, and now we're doing L's again, more L. Heavenly light shines through and through, helps us to make the world anew. And I always do 3L, 3 times this last stanza, if that's what this is. And then we go to what I always end my circle time with all year long. The sun is shining, the sun shines on me. The moon is shining, the moon shines on me. The stars are shining, the stars shine on me. Now I have to say this year is different because I'm still, my kindergarten is still at home. I start in person in January 11th or something like that. So I changed this a little bit this year because what I used to do is the gift of light we thankfully take, but not shall it be alone for our sake. The more we give light, and then we hold our hands towards each other. The more we give light, the one to the other, it shines and it spreads and it glows still further until every spark by friends set to flame, until every heart with joy to proclaim, in the depths of our souls, a shining sun glows. This year, I just keep I kind of coach them through circle time by what I call Steve Radio. We have like a morning circle time and story time, but with no video. It's like an old time radio show in a way. And for me, at the end of circle time, all year long, then we actually have a rest. Like for those of you who are know a bit about yoga, it's like circle time shavasana. It gives the children's bodies a chance for the movements that I think might be helpful for them, might be supportive for their development to penetrate into their bodies. So we have a few minutes of laying there quietly. And finally, I want to talk a teeny bit about the Garden of Light. That at our school, we used to call it the Advent Garden. I'm going to guess that everybody knows what I'm talking about if I mention it. We changed it many years ago to the Garden of Light because because you can't explain it away to other people. Oh, it's Advent Garden, but it's not religious. So I had a couple of years where I was only doing teacher trainings and not teaching in the school. But my granddaughter goes to the Santa Cruz Waldorf School where I teach. And in the years where I was having my sort of break and just doing teacher trainings, I attended her Garden of Light experience, and they called it Garden of Light, and I sat there with all the with the parents and whatever, and it was beautiful, except they only that they had someone doing music during the whole time, and it was completely 100% Over Stars is Merry Wandering and all the other kind of old Christmas favorites. And I thought, well, why did you change the name? And you might as well have called it the Advent Garden anyway. So I feel like if we really want to embrace the world, we have to really open our eyes and look at all the details of what we're doing. So my Garden of Light, which we celebrate outdoors anyway. Before this year, we already do it outdoors. It's so beautiful. Our school has a redwood grove, and these giant redwood trees make this circle around us. And when um, when we come in there and it's pretty dark, you can look up into the sky and see the stars are up there. By the time all the children's lights are burning on the spiral, the light from the stars isn't so bright. But it's really an amazing thing. I recommend, if you can find an outdoor place, to do it. Anyway, these are the songs that I use. We don't have in my celebration of the Garden of Light, when we go to surround this spiral of evergreens, there is a lit candle in the middle already. It's lit because I don't want somebody who, if you know what a eurythmist is in a eurythmy outfit, that's what they look like. But if you don't know what that is, you think somebody's trying to dress up like an angel. Because in fact, usually people are trying to portray that it's some sort of angel lighting the candle in the middle. And then some have this same angel be the sort of the helper for the children who need help during the walking in. I feel like that the teacher, and if there's an assistant, they're already the angels of the group. You don't need some other angel. So I have the candle lit when we all come to sit around it. And I sing this song at the beginning when we start. And then after every child has had a chance to walk the spiral, I sing it at the end, after maybe one whole minute of sitting in silence. All the parents, all the children, we really sit in silence and just take in the candles, the redwood trees, the stars. So many stars shine in the night. They shine from far to give us light. Each little child their light shall bring, till warm and bright the whole earth sings. So that's not the song such as I originally learned it. It now, though, doesn't have anything troubling to anyone that might be from a non-Christian family tradition. So that's how I start. Actually, I always start by telling a story. I think a festival needs a story. So we come into the grove and sit around the outside of the spiral, and there's that one candle lit in the middle, and I tell a story. And depending on what I feel like the group needs, I've told many different stories at that festival. And then I sing the song that I just sang. And then when the children are one by one walking the spiral with their unlit candle to go light it and then to come back out and put it down someplace, this is the song that we sing over and over and over and over, maybe 100 times or more, until every child has had the chance to go. And sometimes you need to kind of put some energy back into it because it starts to sound like a dirge. It really needs some awareness to keep it moving and to not let the pitch of the song get lower and lower and lower as the repetitions of it continue. So this is the song. It was written originally by the woman who founded our school, Gudrun Monash. She wrote this maybe in 77 or 78 or something. And this is the song. And it used to be actually that we named the children. So-and-so is walking to get their little light. But the one child might go in and out really quickly, and one child might be taking a really long time. So there was a lot of silence as a possibility, too much silence. So I took their individual names out, and this is the way we sing it. The children are walking to get their little light. All the stars are watching by day and by night. When they have their little light, see their faces shine so bright. Carefully they set them down to light the spiral way. So I know a lot of people, they put maybe like I think of it as a target down for the children to aim their candle for. Maybe you cut out gold stars and place them around where you want the children's apple with a candle in it to land. But I prefer to just let them put them wherever they want. I want to see what's going to happen rather than me form it too much. So those are just some ideas how we can be maybe more inclusive, maybe more welcoming to people from other traditions, people that haven't been going to teacher training and have read different things that Steiner said about this and that, but people who are super smart. Like, we should never underestimate the intelligence of the people that aren't the teachers. And we should welcome the things they have to say and listen to it with open ears so that we can learn how to do better, how to do better and better. So I would like to give you all a chance, if I can figure out how to, how do I unmute everyone? Let's see. Okay. There we go. So I think if anyone would like to say anything, question, comment, I would love to hear it. And you just have to unmute yourself. Michelle.
Hello, thank you so much for everything. I am a kindergarten teacher at a public Waldorf charter school. So hearing all of the things that you brought forth are definitely questions and all kinds of thoughts that I've had before. And it's just so nice to hear. I did my teacher training at Sunbridge, and it was definitely something that we talked about a lot. But it's nice to hear that there are people who have been doing this work for so many years and they're willing to take it up and continue it forward. So thank you so much.
You're welcome. I think it's so important. And where are you located?
Pennsylvania. Yeah.
Okay.
Our school is near Allentown. I don't know if you know where that is, but
Yeah,
Eastern Pennsylvania.
Jennifer.
Hi, I just wanted to thank you. Many of your thoughts were incredibly resonant with how I have been feeling in my 11 years full-time in the kindergarten, and before that assisting. And I have adjusted a lot of my curriculum in the ways that you have suggested. So it was really confirming to hear. And I also wanted to say, especially about the St. Nicholas thing, that was something that really was, I think, awkward for so many families, where they didn't understand what was supposed to happen, and the children were anticipating something that didn't happen. And we ended up changing it in our school so that the children heard the story of a generous person, and they each got just a tiny gifting stone in it was in a basket, and they each chose a gifting stone, and that's something they could keep in their pocket to remember to be generous, like Nicholas. And so that was sort of our little tweak on that one, where there was no anticipation of anything in the shoes or any gifts given to them. It was something to remind them to be generous to other people.
So our school was founded by a woman from Germany, and one of the very first teachers, maybe our third or so teacher, was from Holland. And so I joined the school. The school was about 7 years old or so, 6 or 7 years old. And St. Nicholas was living at school. And not only that, St. Nicholas came to school with Rupert. And there was, this the bishop's outfit, and somebody would put blackface on and be all hunched over, and and it was so horrible. And first thing that happened a few years later, we got rid of the helper. So it was just this
Hallelujah.
just a bishop looking guy. And then it was actually a struggle to not have that being manifest on campus in front of the children, because so many people somehow got attached to it, who were all teachers, of course.
Yeah.
And then eventually we eliminated that tradition. And then, as I mentioned, eventually I took a few years off. And when I returned, there was a few new teachers, and St. Nicholas and Rupert were back.
Oh no.
I'm not joking. And so it was a big conversation of not only how could this happen, but is this something we really want to be doing? And it was a really great process, though, again, to look at the question and really see what are we standing for, because what we stand for what we're doing, and it means something. So
yeah, we're also really looking for ways to do a winter festival in this atmosphere. How do we completely transform it into something that still creates community and brings people together and keeps them apart enough. It's
right.
A hard one.
It is. So at our school, middle of October, we started in-person school again.
We did too.
But we have 2 kindergartens, but only the other kindergarten is in person. So I'm waiting till middle of January for me. But the question, so we're not allowed to have gatherings. In
Right.
Santa Cruz County, you cannot, just period. And that schools are open. Public schools are not open.
Oh.
In our county, private schools chose to be open. Public schools chose not to be open. And but that being able to be open is contingent on following certain rules. And so
Right.
having a festival with parents and children would that's a breaking a rule thing. So what some of my colleagues are thinking about is doing this Garden of Light during the school day with just the children.
Okay.
As a way that it could still be held, because I think we have to let go of the idea of large community in person for right now. we're here, we are, there's what, a dozen or something of us or more. We have a temporary community on Zoom, and it's not so good, but it's also not so bad. We have to be able to to take advantage of what's possible in the moment. So
Yep. We were trying to do something screen free just to give everyone a break, but you're right. I can't really we haven't found the way yet.
we had our first festival, an all school festival, I think it was just last week. We created a festival at our school for celebrating the land on which our school is sitting, the people who have stewarded the land for hundreds and hundreds of years, who still are here, and our own individual ancestors. So we created a festival we call Honoring the Ancestors, and we couldn't do it in person. So but we still had the song. Songs on Zoom is really bad.
I know.
So we had one person sing the song, but it's a song that everyone knew. So everyone was muted, but they could sing along if they chose. We had someone tell the story of their ancestral journey. We had a video montage of this ancestor tree that our gardening teacher thought of as part of our festival. So each student took some magnolia leaves, which are very stiff leaves, and they painted on them the names of their ancestors, or one ancestor per leaf, but also where the ancestor was from. And then they hung those leaves onto this, a pretend tree, but it had branches. And then somebody took photos of the children as they were putting up their leaves. And so we showed a montage of that happening. And then I gave a little talk about what was the intention of our celebration, and that, taking the gifts of the past, taking them into our sleep life, and then creating something better for the future. And then we ended with the most perfect calendar of the soul verse that just fit the exact celebration that, the intention that we had. And afterwards, so we did it on Zoom, and it was a webinar type of Zoom. It wasn't like this, so only the presenters were visible. And it was beautiful, actually. It can work, but it really has to do with, I think it works better if it's live. Like somebody said, well, why don't everybody record their stuff in advance and then we'll just play it? But that doesn't seem to me the same. There's something missing when that happens.
Yeah, that's a beautiful idea. I love that.
Yeah. Someone asked a question in the Zoom, and the question is about heaven and heavenly. And what does it mean for you or anyone? And to me, where the stars are is the heavens. The heavens are where the stars and planets hang out. That's called the heavens. That's the heavenly world. There's another definition, which means possibly the place where you go after you're no longer a physical being anymore. But that's not what I'm referring to. I'm referring to the starry heavens. I hope that answers your question. And the other part of your question is another time of year completely, but Michaelmas, the story of St. George and the dragon is boring. And it's very limiting if you think that's the story that you have to tell. There are amazing stories of courage and of intelligence and of kindness being what is needed to redeem the challenge, that whatever the dragon is. Or even there's stories where being a dragon is a cool thing. So at our school, we have celebrated Michaelmas with many different stories. We do all school festival where the grade school children act out a story. And we've done the story, the Dragon's Gate story is a Chinese story about a fish, a carp that wants to leave its little pond and swim upstream and then up the great waterfall, which is the Dragon's Gate, and has to trick the dragon so that the carp can become a dragon. So it still has, the effort of will and the intelligence required to trick the dragon, but it's not somebody with a sword rescuing the poor, incompetent girl from the clutches of the dragon. We don't have to promote those stories. It's not good for anyone, I think. So yeah, find stories from everywhere and you can bring those stories. The South African story of Nkosinathi and the dragon is a beautiful story for Michaelmas. Perfect, absolutely perfect. So look for stories. There's hundreds and hundreds of books of stories. And you may find a book that has hundreds of stories in one book, but only one of them is going to be good, or one of them is going to be something that you will resonate with as one you want to tell. But to me, that book is worth it. You don't need to get dozens of stories from each book, because there's many books, many books. So it went on a little bit longer than an hour, but thank you all for spending your Friday afternoon with me. And I hope it inspires you to go home and think about stuff some more. That's my biggest hope.
Thank you, Steve.
Bye-bye, everyone.